It's time for the show about the people and the places of the Carolinas with the occasional visitors. In addition to hosting the award-winning syndicated TV show Life in the Carolinas, Carl White writes a weekly syndicated column and now hosts this weekly show, the Life in the Carolinas podcast. Now you can hear the story about the stories. And now, here's your host, Carl White.
Abbie, welcome.
Thank you.
To our Life in the Carolinas podcast. I always think of you as the Queen of Leatherwood.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my gosh. Tell folks real quick who you are and a little bit of what you do.
Well, my name's Abbie Hanchey, and I am one of the co-owners of Leatherwood Mountains. I have built my whole life around Leatherwood, and my family has been a part of vacationing and visiting Leatherwood since the 80s.
Wow.
And I've worked there all through my college career, and ultimately have worked my way into my position now, which is co-ownership of the business end of Leatherwood Mountains.
That's pretty darn exciting. I think we met, 8 years ago? 9 years ago?
Something like that. I was trying to think back on the way over here.
It was a long time because the guys were...
Phil and Phil.
Phil and Phil, that's
Phil
right.
Phil.
How could I forget Phil and Phil?
Yeah, the two Phils.
That's
we just
right.
had the Kentucky Derby last week with the two Phils.
They were there?
We were rooting for them. No, the horse that got second. It was called Two Phils.
Okay. So they were at the Kentucky Derby.
Well, we were rooting for the horse called the Two Phils.
Okay.
Anyway,
All
because
right. Now
why
it's
not?
clear.
Yeah.
I think that's great. How are they doing now?
They're doing great. Doing wonderful. They basically had retired from their professional careers. Right. Phil Whitson being an attorney and Phil Rash being a businessman, and they had found their way to Leatherwood and the business end of Leatherwood, and it naturally evolved into my business partner Trevor Whitson and I purchasing it in 2017. But they are both Phils are still very much involved, very much our mentors.
No, that's great.
Yep.
Well, I like them both, and I remember Phil Whitson. He was out showing me about a training methodology.
Right.
That was extremely kind and gentle and full of all sorts of human equine psychology, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, very much natural horsemanship approaches to the partnerships that we make with our equine friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has that influenced you? I mean, from your training and involvement with horses and mules and donkeys, is the natural way something that you subscribe to?
Absolutely. Yeah. Over the years, being in the many different disciplines of the equestrian world that I've been in, things have changed a lot over the years, and I most definitely think the natural approach and the partnership method works a whole lot better in the long run than trying to force an issue with a horse. Same with children and relationships in life. Yeah,
it's an interesting idea to ponder and to consider, because if for those who are not animal people, if you will, there's this separation of we humans are here and we're part of the mammal side, but the horses and the dogs and the cat, they're all over here, and they're more property than they are, relationship potential. Right. I kind of think it's relationship. I think we forge friendships with our animals.
Of course, great, wonderful bonds that are very real when you do have that connection with the speaking of equines, when you have that connection with the equine partners that you make, they're lifetime bonds. And over the years, again, in the business of being in the horse industry, a lot come through your lives, but you always try and give them the absolute best that you've got to give. And we've definitely made some very, very strong relationships over the years.
Tell me personally, from your perspective, share one of your stories of one of your four-legged friends and what that relationship meant to you. Not only meant to you, but also how it changed or evolved your life.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess probably my one true love of a horse was Blue Solitude. Got Blue for Christmas. Santa brought him when I was 10 years old. and he was the first horse. We were very green. My parents were very green, but I was on the path to being a horsewoman, and there was no getting around it. So they bought a beautiful, big 17-hand Tennessee walking horse.
For a 10-year-old.
Big blue roan. Yep, and he was 2 years old. He had actually been in a training barn, and he hadn't made the cut, so he wasn't going to be it wasn't going to be a fancy show horse.
Right.
And he came into our life, and again, just changed our entire world. We went from being my family grew up in Forsyth County in the Winston-Salem-Clemens area. Went from living in a neighborhood to buying a mini farm out on the outskirts of Clemens, and went from 1 horse to 2 horses to 3 horses to 4 horses, and started showing. And my entire world has revolved around horses.
Right.
And Blue started it all. And we had him until, he passed away in 2000, and 12, I believe. So he was with me his entire life. And
nice.
I still, he's just such wonderful memories. My kids got to ride him, Yep.
So you are thinking about the deeper relationship, and you're giving me highlights, but let's talk for just a moment, because I've talked to other horse owners about what that relationship was really like. I mean, did you tell your horse your problems? Did you feel like you had an ear there? Was there comfort?
Absolutely.
And talk about that.
Always. Just, growing up as a kid that had responsibilities of taking care of horses, and we weren't the kind of family that just boarded them and other people took care of them.
Right.
We've done that before with training horses, but they were our responsibility. So it's in the morning, you go and you feed and you muck and you make sure everybody's taken care of, and you're back in the evening and you're doing your own exercising and taking care of your own gear. And it's just such a peace being in the barn, being with an equine companion like that. He knew all my secrets. He knew all my he knew all my joys. If there was an off day for me, it was an off day for him. When we would ride, but there rarely was when I was around him in particular.
So you kind of brought a little peace to each other.
Of course, yeah. And definitely, that kind of bond is just cherished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to chat about that with you because, once again, for people that are not horse people or close pet people, they may think that, that's not the feelings of adults. That's not, kids feel that way. But I've talked to you, I've talked to men who are in their 70s and 80s, and they tell me their stories about how these animal relationships have not only changed their life, but been part of that fulfillment.
Absolutely.
And given them great peace.
Absolutely. It just speaks volumes, seeing people that come from troubled pasts or, Army vets or, people that have trauma, and they're able to be around, in particular, speaking about large animals, equines.
Right.
It just is, it can be life-changing. There's something about the way you move differently around a horse if you're comfortable.
Right.
Somebody said recently, I think, that you can get into the horse's heartbeat is such that it's just calming and it's slower, and when you're around him, your blood pressure drops and your heart rate drops and you're more in tune, and it's something that can't be forced. You have to feel it, and people that want it can certainly move into that.
So a bit of that gentle giant influence.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Well, maybe that was a personal way to start, because I love our animals. I love interacting with them. Not all. I mean, animals are like people as it relates to some are great and some aren't.
That's right.
So there's some people you're like, you got 10 minutes and that's enough. You got to go somewhere. But with a great animal or horse or a dog or, domestic pets, that's a whole different thing.
Of course.
And I do think it gives us a lot of peace, and they don't they don't tell our secrets, and well, the cats might tell each other, because they're after controlling the world anyway. So,
I hear you.
and they do a good job with that. Okay, so let's talk about the wonders of Leatherwood, because I visited recently for Mule Days, of which I think I saw the first Mule Days. Sharon was telling me maybe 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I try to get back as often as I can because I'm fascinated with these creatures and the mules and the donkeys and the stories of not only how they come to be, but the bonds that people have with them. It's pretty darn neat. So talk about what's happening at Leatherwood, where it's evolved since we first met, and we did a piece for the show, for the TV show. I don't know, that was 7-8 years ago too, I guess, the first time.
Yeah, you've done more than one. I
have. Yeah. We come to visit. We wrote. I never will forget. And one of the Phils he was kind, but when we come up to do the production, we had these shots we wanted to get, right? So we wanted to get some riding shots. So the riding shots, and I thought, the show's only half hour, so it's, we can't ride that much because we had a lot of things to do in that episode. But to get the one riding scene where we're on the trail, and I was with Phil
Rash.
Phil Rash, and we had a great ride. Well, to do that, I don't know, 8-9 minute ride took us about 3 hours because we were shooting it from every different angle, and it was great. It was a great talk. It felt good. It played good. But the thing that people don't know was that when I got back, because I didn't get off the horse for that entire time period.
Yeah.
So when I got back to the stables to get off, I had to have help. And when I finally got onto the ground, right? I'd been on horses before, but never like that.
Right. And
not for that period of time. And so, I don't know, if Phil and maybe your husband helped me off. So we get me on the ground. And then, they didn't pick me up. There were steps. So they finally helped get me off. And then there I stand. And Phil turned around and looked. And I said, Phil, I don't think I can move. So literally he came over and said, here. And literally gave me a hand on his shoulder or something. And I got to moving
Once
again.
you start moving.
And it was fine. I'm not the only one, am I?
No, you're not the only one.
Okay.
Not at all.
Good.
Yeah, a lot of our, you use different muscles when you're riding that you don't even know exist sometimes. But
well, I was reminded of all those muscles, and but I loved it. I loved the experience, and I loved the response we had from viewers and people talking about what great memories it brought back to them and how they wanted to come up. So hopefully some of them did.
Yeah.
So that's when we got started, and we visited. I think you were doing a lot of weddings at that time as well. And then we came back up for, what was it, Outlander?
Yes.
The Outlander event, which I guess that's, how many years is that?
Gosh, that's been going on now for around 8 years.
Well, we were there for the first one.
Yeah, 2018. So, there's been a lot of positive growth, but honestly, one of the things that's so beautiful about Leatherwood is that you can go for 5-10 years and there's not a whole lot of change. It's really sort of a moment in time, moment in your heart, and every time you come back to it, it's very much the same as it was before. As far as the business goes, we are growing in different directions as with our restaurant, of course, trying to cultivate lots of live music events during our summer months, tapping into the local scene and trying to get people that come out because we're huge music lovers and fans.
Sure.
So that's been really nice. Hosting events such as Mule Days with Shannon Hoffman and the Outlander event with Beth Pittman, who organizes that. And then also creating our own events or cultivating our own events and sort of getting back to our roots with equestrian horse camp that we're launching this summer called the Giddy Up Gang. And it's a 3-day. We're doing 4 weeks of 3-day day camps for children from the age of 7 to 14.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
the idea is the parents get to come and rent a cabin or come camping and drop their kids off at the barn on, in the morning, and the kids get to help with feeding and grooming and learning about the actual care of the horses, and go trail riding and do exercises in the ring and things like that. And then they get picked up, in the afternoon, and the parents have had a chance to sort of do their own thing for the day. So
that's fantastic.
we're really excited about that and really look forward to seeing where that program can grow.
How many students will you have in your
So
classes?
it's limited to 7 kids per session.
Okay, good.
We've sold out 1 or 2 of the sessions. We still have some spots available, and again, we had sort of had this in place prior to the pandemic and sold it out, and then pandemic hit and we had to pull back and weren't able to launch it. And then for whatever reason since then, we just haven't, honestly, we just wanted to try it again this year.
Right.
And so that's where we are.
Good.
And we're really excited about that. Hosting some additional trail rides, group events. We're going to have a poker run ride here at the end of June where people can come out and enjoy some live music and food trucks and do a poker ride, which is like you would do on a motorcycle.
Right.
You have stops throughout the day, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
How far? How will the ride be on Leatherwood exclusively?
Yeah, I imagine we'll probably do a 7 or 8 mile loop,
Right.
and so 2 or 3 hour trail ride, and people will have stops throughout, and you'll pick up your card and come back around.
I think when you just said 7-8 mile loop, that gives people an idea of the vastness of Leatherwood.
Yeah. Leatherwood is amazing, and one of the things that over the years, of course, we've always had just an amazing trail system, but throughout the course of storms and erosion and things like that, you really have to maintain and continue making improvements. And we're in an incredible place right now with our trail system. We've got an incredible group of boots on the ground volunteers that help us maintain the trails. Our Property Owners Association has really gotten behind the efforts to keep our trails in great shape. Our business works hand in hand with those entities to make things really the best that they've been in a long, long time. So we're very proud of that.
Nice.
We of course, are able to, ride those trails. But over the years, I feel like there's been more and more people that come to Leatherwood and just want to hike.
And just hike and chill out, right?
Yep, that's right. Hike and chill out.
Well, let me ask you about your property, because if I remember correctly, there certainly are some historic significance to your property.
There is.
Of course, I love that part of the property.
Right.
So talk about those for a moment. Cabins, but then isn't there a piece of the trail that, who was it? Daniel Boone? Talk about that.
Yeah, there's it's lovingly called the Daniel Boone Trail, and what we have been told is that it was a part of Daniel Boone's route when he was crossing over to go out west, and it's part of a geographical location called 7 Mile Ridge, and we have used the trail over the years as sort of a connector trail from 2 parts of Leatherwood. I remember riding it years ago when I worked as a trail guide, and I was in school at Appalachian State, and there were ruts in the trail, such as I was told that it was because the ruts were there because the wagon wheels would ride higher and the horses would dig out the ruts. Now that might have been a tall tale, but I definitely know that
it's a story.
It's historic, and it's a story. And there's Daniel Boone was definitely in our area.
Of course he was.
And
That's
then there is the historic Hendricks Home Place that is at the front door of our property, and it's just a magnificent 2-story original log home that was built in the early 1800s by Hendricks and doulas. And, of course, the doulas, Tom Dooley, story means a lot to people. And over the years, so many people have stopped by Leatherwood and said, my great-great-grandmother grew up there, or my great-uncle grew up there. And so that's really cool. And we always open it up for people to come and to check it out. And
so you're getting visitors from the equine side, from the outdoor nature side, and also from historic
side,
perspective.
Yes, especially the Outlander group, who has been so. They're just such history buffs.
Yes.
Love to make Leatherwood sort of a home base, and go visit Fort Defiance, go visit Whippoorwill, go hit the Blue Ridge Parkway, and just really soak in the history.
They are certainly wanderers.
They are.
Sure.
They sure are.
We met Beth. Like I said, it was at the very first Outlander event, and maybe some months before that, and then that we met her, and she came in. I think we did a story then. Tim, was that before or after? It was before the Leatherwood event, right? With Beth Pittman.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, long time ago.
Yeah.
And watching that group, for a group to grow is one thing, but for a group to have enthusiastic participants and followers, that's another thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what they have, because I see them all over the state of North Carolina, from New Bern to your place, which is they consider to be quite sacred.
They really
for
do.
Their message, right?
They do. Beth, actually, you can create Google waypoints and things like that, and she tagged Leatherwood as Fraser's Ridge, which is the Diana Gabaldon fictional space that she wrote these books after, and people show up and they'll say, "Now, where's Fraser's Ridge?" or "We're here," and of course I know what they're talking about, but some of my employees are like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Right.
So,
but it's the idea,
of course,
and I think historically there were definitely. We know there's history there.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Well, nothing like a nice blending of facts and a little possibility, right?
A little folklore. Yeah, love it.
A little folklore.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got all sorts of horse events, hiking events. History is tied to Leatherwood. When I was up for Mule Days a few days ago, it is my tradition that when I come there to see you and your various events, when I leave, and often I'll leave and come back, I'll just drive right down the street, and I'll go over and walk over your bridge over Fort Creek, right?
Elk Creek, yeah.
Elk Creek. So over Elk Creek, and I like to just go there and stand and just listen.
It's amazing.
Watch and listen. It's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. We are so blessed to be the stewards of a 1 mile section of Elk Creek from the sign where you enter Leatherwood. We've got a 1 mile reach that goes all the way up. And back in 2000 and I think it was around 12, we became part of the group that does the North Carolina hatchery supported trout. So every year the state will come and do 2 or 3 releases,
right?
And it's just been a really cool program. It's really, really neat to see that and watch that. And of course, people will watch the release dates and love seeing the fishermen out. We've got a really nice place for people to park and easy access, which I think sometimes those places that are designated as that are a little bit harder to maybe get into. And this is really, really easy. Great for kids. Great for
So it's
all ages.
It's a great family experience.
Of course.
So you have on one side of the road, you have your offices and stables, and then where the creek is, there's camping spaces there.
Yes.
So do you have a lot of people who come to camp?
We do, and that has become, again, very popular, especially with our horse friends and family that come up and rent stalls for their horses for the weekend and then a campsite and ride for the whole weekend. But again, with the more the greater popularity of camping and people with RVs or little motorhomes or just tent camping, it's a beautiful spot, very family friendly. You're right there on the creek. We do power and water hookups.
Okay.
We've got a shower and bathroom facility located in each of our barns. And then, of course, when you're there, you to have access to the restaurant or go horseback riding, go hiking. It's just a really wonderful
So
spot.
basically, if you come camp, you have some of the same privileges that residents on the mountain have.
You sure do. You can actually purchase a pool pass for the day if you wanted to go to the pool.
Okay.
But honestly, in the summertime, I prefer sitting in the creek or doing creek walking or, parking your chairs out there. And
I think that's the interesting part of the creek is it's big enough in spaces it feels like a little river,
it's
right?
Beautiful, yes.
And and as I said, I just love to stand there and just listen to the water because it's great.
Agree.
So, but you've got those areas where it's a little deeper than other areas where it's perfect for wading.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. We actually do tubing in the summer as well, and that's a lot of fun. It is not.
So you have the tubes?
We do.
Okay.
We do. Yep. That's a great family-friendly activity. We just tell people to be sure to have water shoes because you're in a rocky creek.
Right.
It's not a deep water float, so it's.
How far is the float?
So we've got a walking loop where you would pick up your tubes and you walk upstream about, I've got a quarter of a mile, and it's sort of windy, so you actually have a further float, and you float down all the way through the campground. So ultimately, probably about 3/4 of a mile on the tubes, and depending on the level of the creek, you might have to get up and depending on the size of the butts that are in the tubes, you might have to get up and walk a little bit. But the kids love it. And it's a great fun thing. And our the cabin rentals, of course, people will come for the summer or come for the vacation during the summertime and do that. Go for a horseback ride, rent a bicycle.
Plenty of stuff.
It's just a great place to come and completely unplug and really connect with what's important.
I like that a whole lot. So you shared with me a little bit of information when I was visiting at your little ranch, and you talked about you and your husband getting more involved in Wilkes County and serving economic development. Talk about that a moment from your perspective, because Ferguson's out there a bit.
Sure,
right?
yeah,
it's out there a bit. Why are you concerned about all the things that are going on in Wilkes County, and why at this point in your life?
Well, again, as I have been a Wilkes County resident now since really the late 90s, Leatherwood has a tendency just to be an island. You're there and you just really kind of let the rest of the world fall away. Yeah. But living and having children in the Wilkes County school system and bringing our family here and building our life. My mom and dad bought a place at Kerscott Lake years ago. My sister lives 2 miles down the road from me and works at the community college with Merlefest. All of our roots are now here. And for years working at Leatherwood, that was really all I needed. But now with all of these other areas, Hugh working at the YMCA with Caroline Whitson, and we've just gotten to meet just the best and most wonderful people. We're so honored to be a part of the community. And a couple of years ago, Thomas Sally invited me to join the Tourism Development Authority for Wilkesboro. And it was just a great time to be a part of what's been going on in the community, to get some eyes focused on Leatherwood that normally they just think that we're just sort of in a different world. And it's just been really great. We're really excited to be in the county right now and to be a part of that. My business partner, Trevor Whitson, is now been asked to serve on the TDA that the county has developed.
And he takes care of the restaurant and
and the real estate. Yep. And again, it's family-run business, so we all do it all. Right. I got my real estate license about 1.5 years ago, and so I'm able to help with that if I need to. But we really feel that it's a very, very important time to be involved in what's going on in Wilkes County.
Nice.
Yeah, we're thrilled.
So I'm hearing what you're saying. I don't know if you would be saying this had you not done the work early, though, right?
Right.
So in other words, you fell in love with this part of the Carolinas by being part of it.
That's exactly right.
And then, do you believe in this notion that birds of the feather flock together? You know, so people who give of themselves that way, people who commit themselves to doing an excellent thing somewhere, anywhere, they bump into other people who do the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
And then after a little while passes, all of a sudden, your little thing starts to mingle with other people's things, and then you join a shared vision.
That's right.
Is that what's happening?
Community, yeah. You're creating community.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, being in a place like Leatherwood that people show up ready to relax and unplug, and every year you see them year after year coming back, and maybe I don't remember their name, but I remember their face, or they'll come up and say, "Oh, we're so happy to be back."
Right.
And it's not just it's layers of things. It's the part of the county where we are, just the drive in. It's when it opens up and you see the view of the stables, and then you stop in and you're greeted by the same people you've seen year after year, because our team is just phenomenal. And then you drive up to your cabin, and there's the view, the Wilkes County view that it's just magic. And
I never will forget that one of the scenes that we shot, which was the reason we shot it is because I had done it a few times, is I went down and had coffee at the stables, and I love doing that when the sun's coming up. I mean, it's just so pretty.
It really is.
And everything is coming to life.
That's
I mean, you hear the animals, you know, the turkeys were running all over the place. And it was just wonderful. And the horses, I would walk down through the stable aisle and just talk to the horses, and doggone if I didn't think they were talking back to me.
Absolutely. I've always said mornings at Leatherwood are just spectacular, whether you're in the equestrian center, you know, with the cats waiting at the tack room for the barn crew to get there and feed them, or the horses start waking up, and the mist is rising, and you hear the birds chirping, or whether you're sitting on the mountain on a deck drinking your coffee, looking out over the Blue Ridge.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I remember all those experiences.
Awesome.
That's great. Those are wonderful experiences. Well, it sounds to me like that Abbie and her husband and partners have paid their dues, and now they're getting ready to do a bit more. Inside, I can't help but to think that you're just making the tomorrows better for your kids.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what we hope for. Yeah, that's it. When you go to bed at night, that's what you hope for. You hope for sustainability, and you hope for generations to be able to have the cherished memories that I have of finding Leatherwood or finding this area, back when we were kids. And just all the things that brings up is just amazing.
Abbie, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Carl.
This has been wonderful.
Yes, thank you so much.
Well,
for inviting us.
I love Leatherwood. I really like you and your husband's drive and vision and what you've done. And hearing this story now is so satisfying from my perspective, because I remember when we met and I see where things are going, and that's just wonderful. It's a great story for the Carolinas.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks,
Abbie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is great.
Yay.
Thanks for listening to the Life in the Carolinas podcast. If you enjoyed your time with us, please visit the show's website at lifeinthecarolinas.com. Join our mailing list, and we'll keep you updated every week on what we have coming up and other interesting things around the Carolinas. We value you as a podcast subscriber. We'll see you next week. And remember what Carl says, it's never a bad time for a good story.